So Emily Markussen is a teacher in Orange County, California, a graduate of Smith College. She has spent her career alternating between nonprofit work and the world of education. Her goal in life since she began speaking has been to become a professional storyteller. Put your hands together for Emily.
Has January been interminable for anybody else? Just me? Thank you. It's been awful. Forever. And every time that we get to another January, I remember, there was a January a couple years ago when I just woke up almost exactly this time of year, and I had no idea what I was doing with my life or who I was. I had no sense of self. It's like everything had just disappeared. And at first I went with the usual, it's seasonal anxiety disorder, it's gray outside, I must be sad. And I thought, I've gained back all the weight that I lost from my resolutions 2 weeks ago, so that's probably it. I didn't get what I wanted for Christmas, I'm sure that's why. But by Valentine's Day, it was fairly apparent that it wasn't going away. I would get up every morning, just long enough to take my 2 small children and drop them at preschool. And I would go back to my home and pull the covers over my head and just lie there, weeping, for the 3 hours I had before I had to go pick them back up and put them in front of the television so I could go back to weeping in bed by myself. I was not sleeping, to be clear. There was no reason to be in the bed. I wasn't sleeping because I couldn't sleep, but I also wasn't really awake. The hallmark of depression is just that you are positive, there's no way out of it, you could just be here for the rest of your life and it would never get better. But I'm a particularly stubborn person, and I thought to myself after 6 weeks of living like this, there's gotta be something. I know what I'll do. I'm a good Gen Xer. I'm gonna ask Facebook what I should be doing about this problem. So I went on to Facebook and I said, oh my God, everyone, all my 30-something friends who are moms. How do I cure soul-crippling depression? Go. Poll. And they, as 30-something moms, all came back with the usual answers. Oh my God, have you tried yoga? You should paint your room a new color. How often are you going hiking these days? Just absolute, I was like, none of those are actually helpful. And then someone said, what about dance? And I love dance. I've always loved dance. I'm terrible at dance. I am absolutely awful, and I only do things that I'm already good at. It's a strong habit of mine. I have poor spatial reasoning. I have poor coordination. I do not like to exert energy if I can possibly help it. But I was desperate, and so I said, all right, dance. What do you do as a 36-year-old mother of 2 if you wanted to start dancing from scratch? And someone said, go to bar class. I'm like, that's not dance, that's exercise, that's cheating. And someone else said burlesque, and I was like, no, good try. And then someone said, hip hop. I was like, oh, that's new. Hip hop is not like other forms of dance. It's not like ballet, be a fragile butterfly. And it's not like most other things where they smile like a psychotic cheerleader the whole time, and I can't do that. Hip hop really asks you to be hard and asks you to be angry in somebody's face, and that was about as much emotion as I could channel at that time, was to be angry at somebody. And I'd never done it, and I said, all right, Yelp, tell me where I can find adult hip hop class, beginner, and there was one 10 minutes from my house. So at 36, and a stay-at-home mother to a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, I went to my first hip-hop class. And I went in, right, thank you for that. I was proud of myself. I was like, this is fine, I'll be fine. And I went in, and the steps to hip-hop are actually really fairly easy because it doesn't rely on skill. All of you could take up hip-hop tomorrow. You're welcome, go ahead. What it relies upon is attitude, because they want you to really just be huh. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, it was the right move, it just didn't look right. It looked really flat and really hollow, which is sort of how I looked all the time at that point. And so I said, all right, I gotta make it angry. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I made angry faces, and they said, make sexy faces. And I was like, oh, sexy, I don't remember with that, sure, I'll make sexy faces. And it started being this point where I mimicked all of these emotions that I used to feel. And I didn't feel them anymore, but I looked much better. And so I thought, well, this is it. Maybe I can just fake it until I make it. I got through the class, I didn't fall, I didn't break anything, and I said, I must be a good dancer after all. I will go back to the advanced hip hop class tomorrow night, because how could that go wrong? So I did. I went back the next night. There were 2 people in the class, me and a girl who was 17, and she looked like an anime character, and she had bobby socks on and little hot shorts, and I was like, hey. Her name was Phoenix, which was so cool, and I was like, I'm Emily, that's so sad. And the instructor came in, and he said, we're going to start this routine on our knees. And what I'm sure he meant to say was, we're going to be on our knees for the next hour. And if he had done nothing else but asked me to be on my knees for an hour at 36 with 2 babies and some extra baby weight still left, that would have been enough. I would have been done and been like, oh my God, that was such a hard class. Most unfortunately, there were in fact other movements that went along with being on my knees for an hour. So the instructor had decided on a samurai routine. And it was supposed to be like a hard-hitting samurai hip-hop thing. And it involved a lot of very complicated and very fast, quick arm movements. Here's your sword, stab somebody, decapitate them. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. Ow, my knees hurt. And so the funny thing was, though, it took a lot of attention because every single count you were moving and doing something else. And I couldn't keep thinking about how sad I was because it was too much to pay attention to the moves and how sad I was. So I had to choose. I could choose depression or I could choose dance. And I chose dance. And I managed to walk the next day despite the fact that my knees really hurt. And I started going twice a week to hip hop. I went to beginner hip hop where I felt good about myself and advanced hip hop where I felt most good about myself. And I went for a few months. And by the time May rolled around, and it was my birthday, I had lost 40 pounds. I was wearing inappropriate clothes for my age, comme ça, because I felt better, and I was like, screw it, I can wear whatever I want. I'm not almost 40. I was wearing makeup again, which I hadn't done since I had children. I dyed my hair blue, also very appropriate. And then they posted that the studio was having auditions for their semi-professional hip-hop teams. And I was 10 years older than half of the people on that team. And I was 20 years older than the other half of the people on that team. And I made it. I think they just like my blue hair, but that's not relevant. And they practiced a minimum of 8 hours a week, preferably 12, and generally practices went from 8 p.m. to midnight, which was fine, because what else was I doing at that time? And after practice ended at midnight, they'd go to like a neighborhood bar on a Tuesday and stay there a while, and I was like, this is crazy, you're still allowed to do that? Who knew? And as the oldest one there, it was my job to take the drunk young people home to their unfurnished apartments or their mom's house. And I would watch them and I would look at them and go, oh my God, they have so much, like they could do anything. There's no diapers in their home. They don't need childcare. And they have all of these possibilities. And I started thinking like, maybe there were possibilities out there for me. And they were very kind. They were very encouraging. And I was obviously by far the weakest dancer on the team, but they never made me feel my age. They never made me feel bad about it. They were just like, you got this, Emily. I was like, sure I do. So I was on the team for a few months, and I stopped eventually because having decided there might be more out there for me, I went back to other passions I had before I had children, before I was married. I went back to teaching. And I became, thank you, I became a teacher of the speech and debate team where I taught them how to tell stories. And unfortunately, I couldn't do that and practice till midnight. That was exactly where I hit the line. I was like, nope, that's enough of that. So I stayed long enough for their first performance. And I can look back at the film of that performance and I'm so proud of it. Not because I look like some amazing soloist dancer, I did not. But for 4 minutes, You can't tell which dancer I am in there because I was able to keep up with the 17-year-olds who could normally dance circles around me. And I don't want you to think that I got rid of dancing just because I got a job, although it's tempting. I don't dance with the team anymore, but I do still go to hip hop a couple of nights a week. And I work a little bit on my steps, which are still uncoordinated and still bump into people. But I mostly work on letting go and trying to put all of my heaviness and emotions there on the dance floor. Thank you.